Well, for over a decade now, climate policy has had a nasty habit of splitting both major parties, and now it's creating trouble for the Labor Party again. Let's cross back down to Canberra and catch up with Labor MP Matt Thistlethwaite. Thanks for joining us, Matt. You would be a mate of Joel Fitzgibbon's, presumably. You're the same faction, and you'd have a lot of time for the argument he wants to make about the need for mining jobs and the need for some role for fossil fuels in the energy mix for some time to come.
Yeah, look, we all want to make sure that Australians have a future in the jobs market, and that means ensuring that we're creating jobs into the future. And one of the challenges that the world has, one of the challenges that Australia has, is that we need to find a way, Chris, to reduce our carbon pollution over the next 20 to 30 years. And that's about making a sensible, steady transition and putting in place policies to do that. And Labor's committed to net zero emissions by 2050. We've got a plan to do so. We're calling on the government to do the same thing because at the moment in the international community, the Morrison government are outliers. We saw Joe Biden last week announce that America will adopt this policy. Japan, South Korea have recently done it. You saw the UK Prime Minister urging Scott Morrison to do the same thing. We want to work in a consensus basis, on a bipartisan basis with the government on getting our carbon pollution down in a sensible manner that doesn't affect jobs and creates new jobs in new industries in the future.
Yeah, well, the US is not even in Paris, and Australia is in Paris and is committed to its Paris targets. Labor has said that it won't bother with a 2030 target anymore. I thought that Joel Fitzgibbon was having a lot of success in just shifting your party to a more pragmatic and more sensible policy, given that your fairly radical plans and uncosted plans probably cost you dearly at the last election. So what's going on? Why has he been forced to quit the front bench, and why are people like Mark Dreyfus throwing barbs at him?
Joel told a few people at the last election, after the last election, look, he was dispirited like a lot of us. He was tired, and he said he'd only spend a short period of time on Labor's front bench in the wake of that election. He said 12 to 18 months. That period's come to an end, and Joel's decided that he wants to spend a bit more time in his electorate. He's been a member since 1996. He wants to spend more time in his electorate, play a bit more golf, and we have to respect that. He's made a great contribution to our party.
Come on, he's been stuck in his electorate right through the pandemic. I've been talking to him.
Well, no, he's been doing a bit of travel. He was up in the Northern Territory last week. And, you know, you're involved in cabinet meetings each week. But regardless, look, Joel's made a great contribution to the Labor Party, and he'll continue to do so into the future. This is about, you know, Joel deciding this is the right time to step off the front bench.
Sorry to cut you off, Matt. We are pressed for time. But, yeah, he has made a good contribution. Yeah. But this is the point. What's he going to do now? Surely he's going to continue to argue this case within the party. Surely this policy battle is far from resolved.
Well, Joel's going to stand up for his community, and we will respect that. On this issue, Labor's got a clear policy, and that's net zero emissions by 2050. We're working now on the plan about how we get there.
2050. I want to grow my hair back by 2050. How are you going to do that? That's not a promise. That's how many more elections before 2050?
So what Australia needs is a sensible policy to transition away from a reliance on coal-fired power and carbon pollution to more renewables. That's the right thing to do by our kids, Chris. I've got 4 daughters. I've got a responsibility as having a chance to make a difference as a legislator, and I'm not going to waste that chance. That's why I'm for strong action on climate change and policies being put in place to make a sensible transition like many other nations in the world are. That's the right thing to do by our kids.
Well, yeah, no one's actually doing it properly yet, but we've got to continue that debate. We're a good match, actually, because I got 4 sons, Matt. But just briefly, before we run out of time, how close were you to the argument in caucus between Joel Fitzgibbon and Anthony Albanese? Did you have a ringside seat?
Mate, that was reportedly in shadow cabinet. I'm not a member of shadow cabinet, so I can't comment on that. But we have robust discussions in the Labor Party all the time about policy, as do the Liberal and National Party. You know, David Sharma's got a very different view on climate change to Matt Canavan. That's the nature of politics, and that's healthy for our democracy, Chris, that we can have differing views and that we're all passionate about it. And hopefully we can come together in this place. That's what the Australian people entrust us to do, to come together in this place and try and work together on a plan for a sensible transmission that makes sure that we protect people's jobs and create new ones into the future.
Spot on, Matt. That's what it's all about. That's why I appreciate you coming on the program, because you know we'll often disagree, but you always argue your case. Thanks for doing that. We'll talk again next time.
Cheers,
That
Chris.
is Labor's Matt Thistlethwaite, the member for Kingsford in the eastern suburbs of Sydney.